All right, we're here with Pete Rush and sports law attorney extraordinaire, and we're talking about uh, the wonderful world of college athletics and where it's going. And Pete has offered a number of comments in our initial segment. But you talk about all right. If and you hear Kirk Herbstreit, you hear others talk about, well, Congress has got to come in and do this, and you're saying no, we need to, we being college athletics needs to collectively bargain and form its own entity to be able to solve this problem at the highest level. Does this only, in your view, pertain to football, or do you see that as totally a tie-off, and the rest of it could continue in NCAA world? How do you see that?
It's not, nothing is forever,
Yeah.
but ideally, I think the simplest way to do it would be to create an all football super league. I
Yeah.
think that would be the easiest way to hive it off and leave the other sports exactly in the system they're in. Now they probably have to get some more rules and regulations, but the thing that's the elephant in the room is football. So you almost need to segregate it out, and you've got the BCS, and it's already a financial juggernaut, and you let them focus on that, and you let the 60 teams go into that, and then I think you can leave much of the structure beneath it in place. Why? Because it's really hard, to take the softball team, and with all this money getting sucked into football, you've seen it already, and it's just inevitable. Sports are going to get cut. It's just going to be, if it's not devoted to the football program, it's not worth doing. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy for the institution. So you may have a situation, and candidly, I've recommended that you hive off the football, especially from state publicly funded universities. Hive off the football. You are running an entertainment complex, and God knows, Warner Brothers hasn't been able to do it. What makes you think, a college, a board of this entity with the five heads is going to be able to run a great studio? It can't. It's not. It's not what they do. It's not what they're designed for, and the liability grows. So there would be an idea to, like, almost farm
Yeah.
it out to a professional organization, and have them run the football, with the schools having their votes and all those things, and they can vote within the system. They can all create an LLC and put it in this entity out there. But if you can divorce the football away from the other sports, life can kind of go on the way it is. In other words, you can have your athletic director, you can have your scheduling, you can have your national championship in lacrosse and women's softball and fencing and all those things that people like, swimming. Keep them, soccer, all of it, and you could promote all the other sports, and maybe it becomes more Ivy League-ish, and
Yeah.
maybe it's, partial scholarships, and with the exception of men's basketball. And then if this works, maybe you go with men's and women's basketball and put them in a separate thing like that. But that would be I think a readily, not readily, nothing's easy, but
Yeah.
it's the most simplistic approach, because there are contracts to be negotiated, and we have different media outlets, and the NBA is able to do it. They've got these guys, and so's the NFL. You can watch some games on Prime, and then other games are on. So you can do this, but once you concentrate the power, you increase its bargaining ability. Why?
Yeah.
Because it can deliver an Alabama Georgia game every
Yeah.
week. It can manufacture one, so that you've got, Notre Dame and Ohio State, and Florida State and Miami. You get these. You could have a massive rivalry game every week.
Yeah.
It could be quite a product. Again, emulating the NFL, and then maybe figuring out who's on this week after we find out, hey, what, Indiana's got a football team. Maybe we put the Indiana game on.
Does this put Purdue in peril in your view? I mean, because where Purdue is in the marketplace right now, we all lament whether we cover them or watch them or root for them that he haven't won a Big Ten game, he haven't won a game against the Power Four in 2 years, and you and I had talked a couple of weeks ago, kind of offline, about, it's hard to have 122-3, the combined score of Purdue, Indiana, the last 2 years, as watchable television. How do you, the NFL, with the exception of the Jets, we'll make that the Jets is competitive, teams 1 through 31 or 32 or whatever it is. How do you fix the right now where the Purdue and the Rutgers and the Marylands fit? Is there only room for 32 in the dance, in your view? Or, how do you see that breaking out? And yet these also are schools of higher, higher education. So you're trying to tie all that together and make this work.
Well, if you asked that question 3 years ago, that would have been Indiana. That would have been the amount we've lost to Purdue in the last 10 years, the number of I's versus the P's over the lifetime, yours and my lifetime.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh my, this isn't a fair fight. Now they're national champs. So the message should be, things can change fast. So what you do is, I would be over-inclusive. Why? Because if you made this cut 3 years ago, there's no one in the world that would have put Indiana in the top 40 or 50. And within 3 years, it was able to build a national champion. Now, why? People are on equal footing now. And all of a sudden, Indiana, with the right decisions and the right building of a mousetrap and money, were able to build a team. And they did it. And they did it. Their average age was, as I understood, when they played the game, 24, which means that's 6 years of eligibility. So whatever NCAA thinks their rules are, they've got, a lot of the smart money's on the oldest teams these days, and that's what people bet. But in any event, so I would be over-inclusive. And if you can get this system of, is it doomed for Purdue? No, it shouldn't be doomed for Purdue. Why? I would think you would want all the major state universities in the conferences, in the system, in the tent. Now, the things that have been proposed before is like the Premier League, League in soccer. So talk about the NFL. Well, then you get to the Premier League. Well, what you do is, just like Ted Lasso, if you're on the cusp, you may fall out of it. And they used to do this in the Chicago Public League. They had a red division and a blue division. And if you were really good, you're in the red division. If you fell out, you were in the blue division. But if you keep winning the blue division, you hop up, and the guys in the lower division come down. You get to the Premier League. So you can climb and you can win the league. And the carrot is, I get into the big league. So my thinking would be, if you do this and then create equal resources, because the real danger in this system is what I understand to be happening, maybe happening, or maybe it's just rumor, in Stanford. Luck is out there raising money for Stanford. And if you get enough billionaires together, they can create a fund, an evergreen fund, that can last forever and can arm your nation with the best missiles out there. So this is self-defense for the schools. So I would include them. If you cut this thing right now and said today, top 100 football programs, that's a bad day for Purdue. I agree with that. But 3 years from now, it might not be. But it's incumbent upon Purdue to make the right decision, make the right coaching decision, make the right personnel decisions. And it's America. Tomorrow's a different year. And by God, Indiana showed it. And that it can be done in that short a time. And in this new world, someplace like Purdue with an alumni base like that, and with the successful people that have graduated from there, oh yeah, it can be done. This is one of the schools you definitely want to have in there, because you'd like the best team in Utah, the best team in New Mexico, the best team in the state of Washington, or the best two teams, Oregon, all the way down the line. You want the whole country involved, and that's the idea. That's going to draw the eyes.
I have one of our esteemed subscribers and posters on goldenblack.com talks about a thing, what about a draft? in this situation? I mean, in terms of equity, is that even as you tie into things you're talking about relegation and trying to make this equal? How in the and you're dealing with these entities that are basically kind of private corporations in some ways. Is that a way to, is that even a possibility in this world where you can? I mean, I see the logistical issues. You're going to go to Cal Berkeley whether you like it or not. I mean, is there any way that from securing a player that you get away from recruiting portal, et cetera, or is that the world we fully are into?
Well, I would think you would. I think you would draft. I think you would have to have a draft because, again, if you don't, but the problem is money usually works it all out that way. So, in other words, Michigan can't pay everybody in this system. Michigan just can't pay $10 million to everybody and load up their system. So, historically, what's happened? There was no limit on scholarships. So, Nebraska, Notre Dame, during the 40s and 50s and 60s, they'd bring in 300 kids.
Yeah.
Well, only 30 of them or 40 of them are playing. But these next 240 were some of the best players in the country, and they're not playing for the other. Well, they put the scholarship limits on it, and guess what happens? Well, now all these other teams get to be good because there's some equality. Yeah. Now the equality's been erased. Why? Highest bidder, LA Dodgers, New York Yankees. You can see it every year. You don't want that. I don't think you want that. That's good for the sport. So, yes, you would have a draft. Now, what about the kid that doesn't want to do it? You can have the Ivy League. You can opt out. The kid that wants to go play at Cal Berkeley, I understand that, but I think what you would do is you would enter the draft. In other words, I'd say I'm Alan Karpik, I'm at West Lafayette, and I want to go into the draft. Well, you understand what that means, Mr. Karpik? What? Means, if you're not John Elway, pal. So if you get drafted by, the Jets, that's where you're going. And the answer is, for $4 million, I'll go anywhere. So yes, I opt in for that, but that's where the agreement comes in. You're agreeing to that. Case in point, Duke quarterback signs an NIL, supposedly ironclad. He goes to Miami. Duke tries to sue the quarterback to make him stay at the university. Dumb, wrong. You can't force somebody. You can't. That's indentured servitude. You can't stop the guy from going to work for another. So they settled that case. Yeah. But the answer is, I'm sure they just got some money. Some money changed hands. So the player would agree up front, and it would be an enforceable contract. The contract would be and if Karpik says, I'm not playing for the Jets, I'm only playing for the Colts, I don't care what they say. We're like, that's great, Alan, but guess what? You're going to be going playing in the European League because we're not having you. So, yeah, you would do that, and yes, you would have a draft, but the reality of it is, like the NFL, you only have so much money. So how much money are you going to give Karpik? Well, we kind of want Rush too, because he's a pretty good receiver. So I can't give it all to Karpik, then we don't have anything for him. So you got to figure out how much you're going to pay. Because of that, the price gets supply and demand goes into effect. And again, if you don't have unlimited money, you can't just keep buying Rolls Royces. Yeah. You can only get one Rolls Royce, and then everything else has got to be a VW or something. But that makes it competitive, and you better hope the Rolls Royce you got is good. Yes, I think you would have to have some control. But the reality of it is the athletes will control, because let's take Stanford. If you give everybody $50 million and Stanford says they really want the two of us and they're giving us $10 million, well, they've only got $30 million left. And, Dave Rogers thinks he's just as good as we are. Yeah. So he's like, hey, I'm worth $10 million. They say, you know what? We've already got Karpik and Rush. So we're only going to give you 3. He's like, 3? Well, the Bears will give me 6. Well, what do? I'm going to the Bears. Yeah. Sure. So the market will solve it. Why? Because everybody's got a fixed amount of money. They can't just pay $50 million to everybody who walks in the door. And that's unfortunately where we are now. So that can't sustain itself from a monetary standpoint. So it's almost self-defense for the universities.
Yeah. In that situation, it certainly is. We will be back for our final segment on Golden Black Live. Pete Rush will stay with us and we'll continue our conversation. So hang on with us for the next 2 minutes and we'll be back for the next segment on Golden Black Live.